Oh, just knocked it over. I am using a stand for my old computer to hold my phone up here. And I got the old computer. I still use it. And that's what I've got the phone first gen to use for a stand. Good morning, Israel. It's pretty early in the morning. I don't know what time it is. It's around 4 in the morning somewhere. This is the coldest morning of this winter here, and it's going to start warming up a little bit. This is also the 21st of December, which is the summer, right? Yeah, it's the winter solstice. So this will be the shortest day of the year in the northern hemisphere, and that little change makes quite a difference. And we will see at the end of this earth age, when there is a reset, that it's going to be a little bit different this next time. Might be a degree or two different. The North Pole will definitely be in a different part of the world, and the South Pole will be in another part of the world as well. It remains to be seen, because the North Pole and South Pole are going to merge, come together, and approximately just offshore from Indonesia, if I remember right. So it's going to be interesting to see where those migrate to. We do know that Antarctica comes up to the equator and the North Pole goes down to the equator. We know that the Earth rotates sideways. Greenland goes and becomes very green, very lush. All that ice melts. And I believe at this point that the next Earth age will see the Earth at that angle for the duration of it, and then it will come right back up into the current position. That's what happens. That's an Earth age. You can look that up in the apocryphal book. I think it's in 1 Esdras. I'll have to go look that up for you sometime. But last night I started reading the book of Isaiah, and I got through chapter 9. I highlighted some, I marked some up, and that's exactly what we're going to cover, and probably won't go any further than that. I started off in Jeremiah. I do think I need to be going over Jeremiah with you again, because there was so much of importance there. And almost every bit of the major prophets is important. I missed quite a bit. So you need to read it for yourself, because you might pick up on, you will pick up on things that I don't. Okay, that's for sure. And if you find something, important, report it back. There's a few people watching these videos, so if you would help out the channel by liking this video and subscribing, that would be great. I also recommend that you speed the videos up if these take too long, because I'm going to go as long as I've got something that I think to talk about. And I know that I'm a little on the slow side. I'm an old man, so bear with me. Speed it up. Go 1.25 times normal speed. If you can manage it, 1.5 times, and save yourself some time. Isaiah. This is pretty important. We're going to start off with Isaiah 1:1. The vision of Isaiah, the son of Amoz, which he saw concerning Judah and Jerusalem in the days of Uzziah, Jotham, Ahaz, and Hezekiah, kings of Judah. So this is his mission. Basically, he focuses on Judah, which is the southern part of Israel, the house of Judah, and Jerusalem during these days of these kings, Uzziah, Jotham, Ahaz, and Hezekiah, kings of Judah. So that's important to know. It doesn't say Israel, the house of Israel. So he's basically been sent to the southern half of Israel. That's his mission. Hear, O heavens, and give ear, O earth, for Yahweh has spoken. I have nourished and brought up children, and they have rebelled against me. The ox knows his owner, and the donkey his master's crib, but Israel does not know. My people do not consider. Ah, sinful nation, a people laden with iniquity, a seed of evildoers, children that are corrupters. They have forsaken Yahweh. They have provoked the Holy One of Israel to anger. They are gone away backward. Why should you be stricken any more? You will revolt more and more. The whole head is sick, and the whole heart faint. For the sole of the foot, even to the head, where there is no soundness in it, but wounds and bruises and putrefying sores. They have not been closed, neither bound up, neither soothed with ointment. Your country is desolate. Your cities burned. Your cities are burned with fire. Your land, strangers devour it in your presence. It is desolate, as overthrown by strangers. And the daughter of Zion is left as a cottage in a vineyard, as a lodge, as a garden of cucumbers, as a besieged city. Unless Yahweh of hosts had left us a very small remnant, we would have been as Sodom, and we should have been like Gomorrah. Hear the word of Yahweh, you rulers of Sodom. Give ear to the law of God, you people of Gomorrah. Okay, as I read this, it sure sounds like the United States of America in the near future. I hate to say it, but we become Sodom and Gomorrah. And I do think that our land will become desolate, overthrown by strangers, which Chi-Com Joe is bringing in now. So you need to understand, this was written about the house of Judah a long time ago. This is what was coming for them. And it also covers Sodom and Gomorrah. This is what's coming to us, the same fate. Here we go a little bit further. Verse 11. To what purpose is the multitude of your sacrifices unto me? Says Yahweh. I am full of burnt offerings of rams, the fat of fed beasts, and I delight not in the blood of bullocks, or of lambs, or of he-goats. He doesn't like sacrifice. He wants obedience to the laws, the 10 Commandments, the natural laws that he gave us. Verse 12. When you come to appear before me, who has required this at your hand to tread my courts? Bring no more vain oblations. Incense is abomination unto me. The new moons and Sabbaths, the calling of assemblies, I cannot endure it. It is iniquity, even the solemn meeting. You don't like your big box churches on the corner. Not much at all, where they preach lies, they say smooth things. The pastors do lie to the people. They preach smooth things. They tell the people what they want to hear. They'd make good politicians. Verse 14. Your new moons and your appointed feasts my soul hates. They are a trouble unto me. I am weary to bear them. And when you spread forth your hands, they spread forth their hands in prayer, I will hide my eyes from you. Yes, when you make many prayers, I will not hear. Your hands are full of blood. Sounds like America today. How many abortions do we have? We're past 55 million, I'm pretty sure, maybe past 60 million. Wash you, make you clean, put away the evil of your doings from before my eyes. Cease to do evil. Learn to do well. Seek judgment. Relieve the oppressed. Judge the fatherless. Plead for the widow. Come now, and let us reason together, says Yahweh. Though your sins are as scarlet, they shall be as white as snow. Though they are red like crimson, they shall be as wool. If you are willing and obedient, you shall eat the good of the land. But if you refuse and rebel, you shall be devoured with the sword, for the mouth of Yahweh has spoken it. They're working on World War III pretty good, aren't they? The physical part of the war. We're in it already, far as I can tell. Verse 21. How has the faithful city become a harlot? It was full of judgment. Righteousness lodged in it. but now murderers. Yeah, murderers and thieves rule my people. They rule my nation today. The murder rate's up about 30%. And that's just what we have documented. There's so much going on that is swept under the rug, covered up by judges and sheriffs alike that are bribed and paid off. 21. How has the faithful city become a harlot? It was full of judgment. Righteousness lodged in it, but now murderers. Your silver has become dross, your wine mixed with water. Your princes are rebellious and companions of thieves. Everyone loves bribes and follows after rewards. They judge not the fatherless, neither does the cause of the widow come to them. So they abandon the fatherless and the widows. They don't stand up for those people. There's a lot of suffering in the country. Some of that's affected me directly. So you can say a prayer that I might recover my family inheritance. Verse 24, therefore says the Lord, Yahweh of hosts, the mighty one of Israel, I will ease me of my adversaries, and avenge me of my enemies, and I will turn my hand upon you, and purely purge away your dross, and take away all your sin. And I will restore your judges as at the first, and your counselors as at the beginning. Afterward you shall be called the city of righteousness, the faithful city. Zion shall be redeemed with judgment, and her converts with righteousness. And the destruction of the transgressions and of the sinners shall be together. And they that forsake Yahweh shall be consumed. And they shall be ashamed of the oaks which you have desired. And you shall be confounded for the gardens that you have chosen. For you shall be as an oak whose leaf fades, and as a garden that has no water. And the strong shall be as flax fibers, and the maker of it as a spark. And they shall both burn together, and none shall quench them. This is the coming fire, the burning of the eagle from one end to the other end. It's in 2 Esdras, chapter 11. Go look that up. That, I believe, is America today. We've become the final beast in the beast system, and we will be burned from one end to the other if we do not repent significantly as a nation. I have no idea as to what percentage it will take to change us. I would like to see 5% Bible readers. I think that's enough to pull it around. I mean, that's a nice goal anyway. 5% is not very much. And that's all it took to give us our independence and defend this nation during our war of self-defense, which you call the Revolutionary War, during which the king attacked us. He actually sent the French Indians after us, put a triple bounty on long blonde hair, double bounty on all other long hair. That means women. And then there was a single bounty on regular hair, men's hair. The king actually gave the Indians that compensation for killing the colonists. Went after our women first. So it was a genocide back then. And the king had about the same counselors, if you will, as he has today. It's the same fight between good and evil. I'm going to try to cover the highlighted points that I have from last night or early this morning. Isaiah 2. We're not going to go through every chapter like this. This just gives us a sense. It gets me started, okay. Isaiah chapter 2, verse 1. The word that Isaiah, the son of Amoz, saw concerning Judah and Jerusalem. So it's the same deal, the same assignment. The house of Israel, Judah rather, the southern part of Israel. Remember, the house of Israel was 10 tribes. The house of Judah was 2 tribes. However, they did have the temple. And they had the kings that inherited the throne, whereas the kings in Israel, if we look at it, there were some pretty bad dudes up there that did some horrible things. That's They gave us a new religion. They created not one golden calf, but two of them, put them in two different cities in the house of Israel, and they doubled down. Remember the golden calf that appeared magically out of the fire? At least that was according to, what was Moses' brother's name who claimed that? They put the gold in the fire and magically this calf appeared like a miracle. Well, they doubled down and had two calves. And we have that calf today in New York, right there in front of the stock exchange. We have that which we worship today. Verse 2, chapter 2. And it shall come to pass in the last days, key phrase, that the mountain of Yahweh's house shall be established in the top of the mountains, and shall be exalted above the hills, and all nations shall flow unto it. So this basically means that Yahweh's house shall be established at the head of the governments. Mountains are governments. And it shall be exalted. That hasn't happened yet. We've got the bad boys running the show, owning the earth today. They stole all of it. The richest man in the world at the turn of the century was Sir Evelyn de Rothschild. I believe he's passed away recently. I'm not sure about that. I think he passed away very recently. And he was said to have owned 51% of the world at the turn of the century here into into the year 2000. Prior to that, the richest man on the face of the earth was the Tsar of Russia, when we went from 1899 into the year 1900, and he owned and controlled approximately 16% of the face of the earth. So, and he inherited his honestly, nobly. The Rothschilds stole it all through their money magic and their banking system, which the United States of America saw fit to host with the Federal Reserve. This is a famous verse in here. Isaiah 2:6. Well, actually 2:4. And he shall judge among the nations and shall rebuke many people. And they shall beat their swords into plowshares and their spears into pruning hooks. Nation shall not lift up sword against nation, neither shall they learn war anymore. I don't think that has ever been fulfilled. This is Old Testament. You people say the law's done away with and the Old Testament's gone. It's all been fulfilled. I don't see that being fulfilled. Now, there is a minor prophet, I believe it was a minor prophet, who reversed that formula, if you will, and talked about them making instruments of war. I'll pull that for you someday. Isaiah chapter 2, verse 6. Well, let me do verse 5. O house of Jacob, come you, and let us walk in the light of Yahweh. We haven't done that yet. 6. Therefore you have forsaken your people, the house of Jacob. Remember, Israel's name was Jacob before he was renamed Israel, after wrestling with God all night on the banks of the Jordan River. Your people, the house of Jacob, because they are replenished from the east, and are soothsayers like the Philistines, and they please themselves in the children of strangers. Talks about the land being full of silver and gold. And at verse 12, for the day of Yahweh of hosts shall be upon every one that is proud and lofty, upon every one that is lifted up, and he shall be brought low. Warning to Israel, well, warning to Judah actually at the time, and Jerusalem, and a warning to the United States of America today. Chapter 3, verse 4, and I will give children to be their princes, and babes shall rule over them. This is so true in many ways, because babes shall rule over them. We are ruled by women and children. That is mentioned in the Bible several times. And if you look at it, We are ruled by women and children. The family courts find in favor of women and children to the expense of the men and detriment of the men and to the detriment of families all of the time. We've undermined the family through our family courts. We've decimated and destroyed the family unit. The government didn't get involved in marriage and marriage licenses until the last century to fund World War II. They decided to talk the people into allowing them to collect those. And those were only supposed to be licenses for hunting and fishing and driving a car until the war was over and they didn't need to raise the money anymore. Did we get suckered in? Verse 9. The show of their countenance does witness against them, and they declare their sin as Sodom. They hide it not. Woe unto their soul, for they have rewarded evil unto themselves. Gay pride. Sodomites. 12 is circled. As for my people, children are their oppressors, and women rule over them. O my people, they which lead you cause you to err, and destroy the way of your paths. Look at the culture war. Look at the horribleness. Look at these politicians that are controlled. Well, most of them are owned outright by the Chicoms. Otherwise, they're controlled by the Rothschilds, who own the Chicoms as well. Verse 16 in Isaiah chapter 3. Moreover, Yahweh says, because the daughters of Zion are haughty, and walk with stretched forth necks, and wanton eyes, walking and mincing as they go, and making a tinkling with their feet. Therefore the Lord will smite with a scab the crown of the head of the daughters of Zion, and Yahweh will uncover their secret parts. In that day the Lord will take away the beauty of their tinkling ornaments about their feet, and their headbands, and their round ornaments like the moon. The chains and the bracelets and the veils, the bonnets and the ornaments of the legs, and the headbands, and the tablets, and the earrings, the rings and nose rings, the changeable suits of apparel, and the mantles, and the cloaks, and the purses, the glasses, and the fine linen, and the hoods, and the veils. And it shall come to pass that instead of sweet smell there shall be stink, and instead of a girdle a rope, instead of well-set hair baldness, and instead of a rich robe a girding of sackcloth, and instead burning instead of beauty. Burning, like in a nuclear war. Your men shall fall by the sword, and your mighty men in the war. And her gates shall lament and mourn, and she being desolate shall sit upon the ground. We're going to be reduced. We are going to be the ones kicked back to the dark ages here. And gates were where justice was administered. Remember Lot? He hung out in Sodom and Gomorrah. He was a judge. He had a position in the walls and the gates. He managed to escape, but his wife turned and looked back and was destroyed. And it was a nuclear blast, or series of nuclear blasts, hellfire and brimstone, sacrificial fire, just like is written in the Bible that's coming to us. The nuclear war was written 2,500 years ago. I kind of like this next one. Isaiah 4, verse 1. And in that day 7 women shall take hold of one man, saying, we will eat our own bread, and wear our own apparel. Only let us be called by your name, to take away our reproach. The relationships between men and women are at an all-time low. Isaiah chapter 5. The vineyard. Yahweh plants a vineyard, but instead of getting grapes, it brings forth wild grapes. And in verse 7, For the vineyard of Yahweh of hosts is the house of Israel, and the men of Judah his pleasant plant. And he looked for judgment, but behold oppression, for the righteous, but behold a cry. We're starting to cry in the United States of America as they take our rights away from us. Woe unto them that join house to house and lay field to field, for there is no place that they may be placed alone in the midst of the earth. One of my brothers says it's because we build our houses close to one another that we commit so much adultery. And of course, most of these modern cities, especially out west, they got them side by side, wall to wall. They look alike. They're cookie cutter homes or just tracks. There's not enough room for privacy. My God, you go to the state of New Hampshire, everybody's on a good plot of land, and the houses aren't set up parallel to one another, so you can hear the other guy fart in the house next door and hear them go to the bathroom and hear their conversations. In New Hampshire, they're at angles. They're individual, distinct, different houses. They're not tract houses. They're set apart. No wonder it's a better state for a man. A man lives longer in New Hampshire than any other state in the Union, in case you're wondering. Verse 9. In my ears, says Yahweh of hosts, of a truth, many houses shall be desolate, even great and fair, without inhabitant. There's a lot in here. Chapter 5, Isaiah, verse 13. Therefore my people have gone into captivity, because they have no knowledge, and their honorable men are famished, and their multitude dried up in thirst. This is where we are. You and I are in captivity. We had a constitutional republic, but they have superimposed a foreign jurisdiction upon us. They've made us all citizens of the seas. They've all put us under admiralty law, under interstate commerce code. There's no more constitutional rule here. So we are in captivity in place. So it's a new thing, but it's an old thing. It's what happened to Israel. Isaiah 5, verse 20. Woe unto them that call evil good and good evil, that put darkness for light and light for darkness, that put bitter for sweet and sweet for bitter. Like when somebody says, man, is that car sick? Well, we've got things reversed today. We talk about, it's just like it says right here. And again, this is the proper name version of the King James Bible. This is the one to go by. There's a link down below. This is the one to read. This is far better than the original King James. It's a far better translation, much more accurate, and besides that, it's got the proper name of Yahweh in it and Yahshua. And it's something that you need in order to increase your faith. Because in order to abide by commandment number 1, thou shalt have no other gods before me, you got to know his name. Don't you think it's important that you know his name? I think so. And I know it's awkward. I mean, it's like, Yahweh? Wow, what's that? Where'd that come from? That's foreign, isn't it? Not to Israel. We go back in verse 24, chapter 5 again. We go back to the imagery of fire. Therefore, as the fire devours the stubble, and the flame consumes the chaff, so their root shall be as rottenness, and their blossom shall go up as dust, because they have cast away the law of Yahweh of hosts, and despised the word of the Holy One of Israel. Folks, you got to understand something. That faith that they preach in the corner of the big box churches is not the faith. It's not the law. They don't even bother to mention it. They talk about grace. They talk about sheer forgiveness. They say you can go do whatever you want. You have license to sin. Don't worry. Jesus is going to forgive it all and make it right. We were given the law as a gift. It's there for us to benefit from. And if you read it, you will realize it's basically natural law. It's not that far off what animals have for their laws in many ways. You know, when one animal steals from the other, they tend to get, well, they get into trouble, don't they? Chapter 6, Isaiah's commission. And that's what I wrote in here. In the year that King Uzziah died. So you can see Isaiah's commission. My handwriting is printing. I had a problem childhood, quite literally, and I know most of you have as well. It's just the way we are. We're suffering a lot. We're designed to suffer. If we didn't suffer, we would never know what joy was. So embrace it all. Now, in this, he sees Yahweh, the Lord, and Isaiah realizes he's seen Yahweh face to face, and he realizes that it's dangerous. He expects to die because of that. He expects he's going to die. Verse 5, Then said I, Woe is me, for I am undone, because I am a man of unclean lips, and I dwell in the midst of a people of unclean lips. For my eyes have seen the King, Yahweh of hosts. Then flew one of the seraphims is a race of angels, unto me, having a live coal in his hand, which he had taken with the tongs from off the altar. And he laid it upon my mouth and said, Lo, this has touched your lips, and your iniquity is taken away, and your sin purged. And I heard the voice of the Lord saying, Whom shall I send, and who will go for us? Then said I, Here am I, send me. I'd say he volunteered, but I would also say he got drafted. Verse 10. I don't know why, but it's coming to me right now, so here we go. Make the heart of this people fat, and make their ears heavy, and shut their eyes, lest they see with their eyes, and hear with their ears, and understand with their heart, and convert, and be healed. Let's get healed, folks. Let's get converted. Let's read. This is the most important part. This reading is what you do to access the mind of Yahweh. This is how you program yourself up, and you put good in and you get good out. You need this. All of our founders in this nation were schooled as children in the Bible. It was their original primer. It was the book by which they learned the language. I need a little bit more light. We have, I'll read verse 13. Well, let me read from 11 to the end of this chapter. Then said I, Lord, how long? And he answered, Until the cities are wasted without inhabitant, and the houses without man, and the land is utterly desolate. And Yahweh has removed men far away, and there is a great forsaking in the midst of the land. And yet in it shall be a tenth, and it shall return, and shall be eaten, as a teil tree, and as an oak, whose substance is in them, when they cast their leaves. So the holy seed shall be the substance thereof. Holy seed is an important thing to me. I highlighted it. We're going to proceed on to Isaiah chapter 7. This is kind of an important thing that we don't pay much attention to. But there was a conspiracy. And I'll read the first verse, and it will tell you quite a bit about it. I'll read the first two verses. And it came to pass in the days of Ahaz, the son of Jotham, the son of Uzziah, king of Judah, that Rezin, I'll say, Rezin, R-E-Z-I-N, the king of Syria, and Pekah, the son of Remaliah, king of Israel, went up towards Jerusalem to war against it, but could not prevail against it. So this is the house of Judah, house of Israel, joining with the king of Syria, going against Judah. And it was told to the house of David, saying, Syria is confederate with Ephraim. Ephraim was one of the 10 tribes of northern Israel. And from Ephraim, I believe we have Great Britain today. And he was the oldest son of Joseph, who Israel adopted as one of his own sons. So, and if anybody asks you about 13 tribes, that's how we got them. Because instead of Joseph becoming one of the tribes, we have Ephraim and Manasseh, adding and enlarging it to 13. And his heart was moved, and the heart of his people, as the trees of the woods are moved with wind. And Yahweh said unto Isaiah, Go forth now to meet Ahaz, you, and Shear-Jashub your son, at the end of the conduit of the upper pool and the highway of the fuller's field, and say to him, Take heed and be quiet, fear not, neither be faint-hearted, for the 2 tails of these smoking firebrands, for the fierce anger of Rezin with Syria and the son of Remaliah, because Syria, Ephraim, and the son of Remaliah have taken evil counsel against you, saying, Let's go up against Judah and distress us, and let us make a breach therein for us, and set a king in the midst of it, even the son of Tabiel. Thus says the Lord Yahweh, It shall not stand, neither shall it come to pass. This is interesting. Verse 10, chapter 7. Moreover, Yahweh spoke again to Ahaz, saying, Ask you for a sign from Yahweh your God. Ask it neither in the depth or in the height above. Ask it either in the depth or in the height above. But Ahaz, in strong faith, said, I will not ask, neither will I tempt Yahweh. The response is important. Verse 13. And he said, Hear you now, O house of David. Is it a small thing for you to weary men? But will you weary my God also? Therefore the Lord himself shall give you a sign. Behold, a virgin shall conceive, and bear a son, and shall call his name Emmanuel. Mary gives birth to Yeshua, who you call Jesus, in error. Butter and honey shall he eat, that he may know to refuse the evil and choose the good, so he can follow his Father's will, Yahweh's will. That's the example that Yeshua set for you and me. We need to follow Yahweh's will. I'll move on and push on ahead so we can get through these chapters. I don't see any marking in the chapter 8 at Isaiah 9. Interesting. Zebulun and Naphtali are lesser tribes. We don't think of them very much, but whenever they come up, I do highlight them. Isaiah 9 verse 1. Nevertheless, the dimness shall not be such as it was in her distress, when at first he lightly affected the land of Zebulun and the land of Naphtali, and afterward did more grievously afflict her by the way of the sea beyond the Jordan, in Galilee of the nations. Those were interesting boys. Naphtali was noted for being as fast as a roe or faster than a deer and running. He ran so quickly, according to one of the extra biblical books, the book of Jasher, that he ran on top of the grain without breaking it. So he was so fast he was able to run over the fields. That's pretty fast to be able to keep your weight off of those things, to move like that. But that's what he knows. Isaiah 9, verse 5. For every battle of the warrior is with confused noise and garments rolled in blood, but this shall be burning with burning and fuel of fire. Reminds me about what I was told when I was a little boy about the end of the earth being fire instead of water next time. We're going to cover that in detail about the floods, the earth cycles. The earth does have an age, and we are at the end of the age. Verse 6, Isaiah 9, kind of important. All right, just to show you how important. Bracketed, circled, and you can see. For unto us a child is born, unto us a son is given, and the government shall be upon his shoulder, and his name shall be called Wonderful, Counselor, the Mighty God, the Everlasting Father, the Prince of Peace. Of the increase of his government and peace there shall be no end upon the throne of David, and upon his kingdom, to order it, and to establish it with judgment and with justice from now on, even forever. The zeal of Yahweh of hosts will perform this. Have we gotten there yet? I don't like part of it, okay? It says the government's going to increase of his government. Now, the fact is it's underneath Yahshua. Underneath Yahshua the Messiah. So that's one world government that I can support. This other thing that proposes itself as a one world government, it really is a one world government, and they call themselves the New World Order. And it's not new, folks. This has been on the planet, for my estimation, for 70,000 years. I come up with the year 50,000 years, and one of the teachers corrected me that his teacher had discovered that the evil had been cast to the earth 70,000 years ago. So these bad folks have been through several of these earth ages, an earth age being almost 12,000 years. It's actually in the books that were taken out of the Bible by the Protestants who thought they were being smart about it. An earth age is approximately 12,000 years. We are coming to the end of this earth age. And if we date the beginning of creation as Usher did, the Bishop Usher, we will be in error just like he was. I don't think he actually got the date of the creation. He says the earth was created about 6,400 years ago. I think that was the date of the sin, of the fall, if you will. That's the date that Eve was seduced by the fallen angel and gave birth to Cain. That to me was not the original sin, by the way. It was the angels that conspired. They're the ones responsible for the original sin. And I say we put the blame where it belongs, on those fallen angels, on those 60 or 200 or whatever it was that were cast to the earth, that left their first estate and met on Mount Hermon and conspired to go into the daughters of men and keep their mouths shut about it, to keep secret about it. That is what we're going to have corrected here in the near future. I'm going to try to move on through this. I think the rest of this is important. The Lord sent a word into Jacob, verse 8, and it has lighted upon Israel. And all the people shall know, even Ephraim, who went against the house of Jerusalem, went against Jerusalem, remember, and the inhabitant of Samaria. They say in the pride and stoutness of heart, the bricks have fallen down, but we will build with hewn stones. The sycamores are cut down, but we will change them into cedars. Therefore Yahweh shall set up the adversaries of Rezin against him, and join his enemies together, the Syrians before, and the Philistines behind, and they shall devour Israel with an open mouth. For all this his anger is not turned away, but his hand is stretched out still. That phrase, his hand is stretched out still, indicates that God's destruction, Yahweh's destruction, is still. His judgment is still going on. And that phrase is repeated throughout these passages. And you need to remember that when they built the altar, they could not build with hewn stones. Then they couldn't use mortar. They had to use natural rocks to build it. So basically the people here say that they're going to do it by their own hands, not by Yahweh. So this is an important thing. They'll do it for themselves. And the inhabitant Ephraim and the inhabitant of Samaria. Samaria was the capital of the house of Israel. And Israel was taken captive first. The Assyrians brought in and put in an entirely different peoples as they took Israel to the other side of their nation on the eastern border and placed the Israelites, who were aplenty, between them and their enemy at that time, the Medes, so that if the Medes wanted to invade Syria, they'd have to go through the Israelites first, and the Israelites would provide a defense. By the way, the Israelites join with the Medes later and go into Babylon and take that place down. Okay, that's when they broke loose. And at that point in time, Israel did not go back home. The house of Israel was told by their prophet, I don't have good data on this though. They were told that they would not go home, that they would suffer amnesia, forgetfulness. They would no longer be called by their father's name Israel, but by his father's name, Isaac. So they became known as Isaac's sons, Saxons. And they went across the Caucasus Mountains, hence were known as Caucasians, and they broke into Europe and into the rest of the world, into lands that weren't inhabited by Adam kind. So I think I'm giving you good value for your time this morning. If you think so, then do me a favor, buy one of my Bibles. It will help me. It will give me support. I would love to sell 1 million of them because it means I'll be more than a millionaire for one. But on top of that, I'd like to be able to get my income up so I can burn my money. Yeah, I burn my money, folks. I'm in a motorhome. I love to travel. I love to talk with people. It's my most... I enjoy that more than anything else, to talk about the truth that's in the Bible. Sure, I get to see the country. Not all of it's beautiful, but it is so beautiful. There's so much variety in it. It's just incredible. And when I fill up my fuel tank, indeed, and drive, indeed, I am burning my money. I'd love to have an extra $1,000 or $2,000 a month to burn in my fuel tank. I think getting this word out there, hauling Bibles around, is an important thing to do. What do you think? Let me know in the comments. And if you've gotten one of my Bibles, let me know as well. I just like to hear about a little bit of success. I could use a little encouragement. Now, Isaiah chapter 9, verse 13. This gives us a hint at what we can do, and actually what the remnant will do in this country. Because there will be a remnant that survives this coming war, and there will be a remnant that survives the end of the earth age as well. In case you're wondering, during the last earth age, it was a mighty whack. The earth got hit very hard, and the brunt of that occurred in the wilderness, what was known as the wilderness, which was North America. We have the most electrical storms on the whole planet here in North America. There's a reason for that. We also have 80% of the world's gold, and there's a reason for that. And they've stolen most of it. We've given quite a bit away. We've allowed ourselves to be defrauded. You need to understand also that Jeremiah came to the wilderness. You need to understand that Solomon the king, he actually mined gold and copper in the wilderness. It was a 2-year voyage on those ships. They come over here and they got back home 2 years later, and they brought back gold, monkeys, ivory, all kinds of stuff. And in case you're wondering, the gold was mined in the vicinity of the Great Lakes, copper and gold in particular. And so when the seagoing ships were destroyed by a storm, which is in the Bible, the ships of Tarshish were destroyed, they left and abandoned the Israelites that were in North America. And that's the group that actually intermingled with the Mongoloids that were here on the continent. No, the Mongoloids were not here in the Americas first. The oldest bodies that we have found are 25,000-year-old skeletons, and they're in South America, and they're Caucasoid, which contradicts this idea that our grandparents and grandmothers didn't leave Israel until 722 BC, 25,000 years before that. I mean, that's a long, well, approximately 25,000 years. It's a long time. And by the way, when they did a reconstruction, the artist did the clay model on the skull that they had found. It looked like, it was bald dude, looked like Jean-Luc Picard, the actor. I laughed when I saw that in Time magazine a while back. Verse 13. For the people turn not unto him that smites them. It's Yahweh that's doing the smiting, folks. Yahweh will use the Chicoms. Yahweh will use the Mexicans, the Iraqis, the Viet Cong, the Iraqi Republican Guard. Yahweh is using all these folks and bringing them home here to us because we have not turned to him. We don't seek him. Verse 14. Therefore Yahweh will cut off from Israel head and tail, branch and rush in one day, which is in line with what the prophet from South Africa said about before the middle of the last century. He passed away before the middle of the last century. That would have been the seer from Rendsburg, Signer von Rendsburg. He said that America would be embroiled in a civil war. The civil war would start in the middle of the nation. And while we were fighting among ourselves, we would be attacked from outside. And in one day, and actually he said in 24 hours, we will lose our armament. And we will never be a superpower again. So folks, I want you to thank the Democrats and the rhinos and the Republicans and the rhinos and the deep state, because they have done everything they can to divide this nation in the last century and today. They've got us at each other's throats. It's the international bankers behind this stuff, folks. My grandmother told me that when I was a little boy. I was 13 or 14 when she mentioned it. Muttered about it in the kitchen and walked off. I asked my mom, what's Grandma talking about? And my mother told me, well, she's talking about the bankers, but people ridiculed her so much about this that she's not talking about it. She stopped talking about this stuff. So my grandmother, who was college educated, graduated from Mount Holyoke in 1917 and became a teacher. She knew that it was the bankers that did this stuff. We've known this for quite a while. Yet she was ridiculed and shunned and treated horribly. So she stopped talking about it. I wish my grandmother had told me about it more. But at least I got that tip from my grandmother, Ione Griffin Kent. I've got a picture of her up on my blog. Mount Holyoke used to put those profiles and old pictures up, but for some reason they decided to take them down. And they've got a picture of my grandmother when she was a beautiful young woman. Oh my Lord, was she beautiful. And the saying underneath it was, how can we tell when Ione is coming? The riddle, if you will, was how can we tell when Ione is coming? And the answer to it was by the sound of her petticoats. In rebellion, or sign of rebellion back then, the women wore many petticoats which made a rustling noise as they walked. So you could hear them coming down the hall, from a distance. You could hear them as their petticoats rustled together. And my grandmother marched for women's rights to vote. I wish I could have lunch with her today. I'd like to ask her what she thinks of the outcome of that. We made a mistake, folks. It wasn't a mistake to give women in particular the right to vote, but the fact is that men never have had the right to vote. Voting was determined by your state, by the state in which you were a citizen. They dictated local voting for local rule, and it was different from state to state. And when they passed that 19th Amendment, they made a mistake. They made a mistake with the 18th as well. Women, was it the 20th? I don't remember. One of those gave women the right to vote. The other one banned alcohol. A lot of problems. That gave rise to organized crime, the bootleggers, which gave rise to really organized crime, which today we call the FBI. Yeah. All right. Verse 15. The ancient and honorable, he is the head, and the prophet that teaches lies, he is the tail. As the saying goes, the Bible interprets itself. So in one day, the ancient, honorable, and the prophet that teaches lies are going to go. That, my friends, is what I call national judgment and national salvation. In this case, national damnation. Let's continue to the end of chapter 9, Isaiah, verse 18. For wickedness burns as the fire. It shall devour the briars and the thorns, and shall kindle in the thickets of the forest, and they shall mount up like the lifting up of smoke. Through the wrath of Yahweh of hosts is the land darkened, and the people shall be as the fuel of the fire. No man shall spare his brother, and he shall snatch on the right hand and be hungry, and he shall eat on the left hand, and they shall not be satisfied. They shall eat every man the flesh of his own arm. Manasseh, Ephraim, and Ephraim, Manasseh, and they together shall be against Judah. For all this his anger is not turned away, but his hand is outstretched still. Let me tell you my impressions as I read this last night. I didn't realize it until I read this new version. This is the best Bible available in the world today. Manasseh is going to eat Ephraim, and Ephraim is going to eat Manasseh. The two were Joseph's sons, Joseph's brothers, born of the, I believe he was given a princess, or the daughter of the priest for a wife. I think her name made it to the Bible. And Ephraim and Manasseh were his sons, Ephraim being the oldest, Manasseh being the youngest. And Ephraim would become a company of great nations, Great Britain, and Manasseh would become the great nation, the United States of America. And so England and the United States will finally finish this conflict that's been going on since before we became a nation. That king over there, that new king that they're about to crown, he's basically the head of the snake. He is not a proper inheritor of the throne. That throne was stolen by somebody in his family years ago. He is a descendant of Cain. He's not a descendant of David. He's not a descendant of Judah. And they together shall be against Judah. Judah's actually spread around quite a ways. Judah's all over the place. For one, Judah definitely is in Scotland. But the general gist of it is that Germany, the Germanic peoples, Germany means genuine. Judah became Germany and had the scepter, and still is supposed to have the scepter, until the evil ones decided they wanted to rule the planet and wanted all the power. And so they pulled off the biggest identity theft in history. That is, they're pretending to be the chosen ones, the sons and daughters of Yahweh, and they're not. They're actually the sons and daughters of Cain. However, that lot is mixed as well. So have fun trying to identify them and separate them. Be careful. Be careful, because the United States, at the time of World War I, 51% of the United States population were German descendants. Yet they talked us into it by their Federal Reserve System and controlling the newspapers and the media. They talked us into going against our brothers in Germany. Adolf Hitler hadn't even been born. Well, actually he had. He was a corporal during that war. But he sure as hell hadn't risen to anywhere near power at that point. And Ephraim became a company of nations, Great Britain. And we united against our brother Judah. That's why people are telling you, no more brother wars. If you're listening to my channel, you probably already know that, and I will apologize. I mean, I want to recognize that. You probably know that. But the rest of them out there, they don't know that. You need to tell them about that. And we had to go against Germany again for a second time because they didn't wipe them out enough. And the whole purpose was to destroy Germany and the Germans. And by the way, more Germans died after World War II, immediately after World War II, than died during the entire war. Yeah, America isn't a very fair country. That great nation that you think we are is not true. That's a myth. We actually have done a lot of wicked around the planet. We've done a lot of horrible things. The bankers treat us as puppets. They rule over us all. They have a one world government today. And it is not the New World Order. The New World Order is coming. It's under Yahshua. It's the old world order. Old world order. Repackaged and marketed and brought forth and sold to you as a bill of new goods, when it's actually the same bastards that have survived the last half a dozen Earth ages. They're digging in today so they can survive this next Earth age. They're getting rid of the rest of us as best they can so they don't have competition for their children that they plan on getting into the next Earth age, so they can rule this place and make it even worse. But I got news for them and news for you. That's not what's going to happen. Something amazing is going to happen. And those people that have dug their holes in the ground will be dying in those. That's in the Bible as well. Folks, thanks for being with me and hanging out. This is probably the longest I've ever gone. We're way over an hour. I apologize for that. I hope that I give you enough information to change your perspective. And I don't want you to believe what I say. I want you to read the Bible for yourself. And when you come across anything that contradicts what I've said or enlightens it in any way, report back. Put it in the comments below for the rest of us, because we want to learn from you. You know, the Spirit is there where two or more of us are gathered in His name, where we talk in it. We have the law of Yahweh etched on our hearts. We have good consciences. And our conscience will hound us if we don't do good. We don't do right. And the evil ones don't have consciences. They are sociopathic, or they're pure sociopaths. They come out of ancient Khazaria. And the sign for ancient Khazaria is on the Ukraine's flag today. And it's on the unit patches for the Ukraine's military today. On every one of them. That is the small symbol which is bigger on the flag, under which the Khazars marched to war. They loved war. They were a sociopathic culture, and they converted to Judaism in about the year 700 AD. They are not from the tribe of Judah whatsoever. They are not Israelites. And a lot of those folks were driven out of Khazaria into Europe. And a lot of them have migrated into Israel today. And probably at least 80%, maybe 90% of those that inhabit the land that they call the country of Israel today, they're actually not real Israelite descendants. They're not descendants of Israel the man. They have pulled off the biggest identity theft in history. They've used your Christian churches to help them with that. They gave us their Bible, the Schofield Reference Study Bible, which has more footnotes, more commentary than it does Bible in it. And they lied in those footnotes. Okay? They've deceived. This is a huge war. It's an unlimited war. And unfortunately, they are permitted. They have been given license to sift us. But sadly, they've exceeded their license. And they're genociding us. In the last century, they genocided 100 million white Christians. Think about that. 100 million, not 6 million. 100 million. For the most part, in the Soviet Union. They conspired from the island of Manhattan. First we take Manhattan, then we take Berlin. They put it in their songs. They rub your noses in it because people aren't awake and they don't understand these simple, subtle truths. They took Manhattan, and then they took Berlin. Now they actually have a one-world government. It's not supposed to last long. Read the Bible, find out what happens. Read the Bible, put good stuff in yourself. Discover the mind of Yahweh. Get access to it. Build that Holy Spirit within you. That is where your individual salvation comes from, is you work through your salvation. You don't just believe. Yes, it may start with believing, but then it comes down to doing. That's what it tells us throughout the Bible. And the law has not been done away with. Yahshua said himself, he came to fulfill the law, not to do away with it. And yet we have been sold a rotten bill of goods. And by the way, in the old Soviet Union, there's a nation. That nation has a capital. And the construction of that capital is very much evil. And the capital city's got this Capitol building, and at the top of the dome is the sun they worship, the sun god, Apollo. And underneath that dome is a giant round table. And each seat around that table is like a sliver, if you will, a piece of the pie. And each of the major religions has a seat at that table, all subservient to their god Apollo, Apollyon. And so religion was one of the three evils, one of the three frogs that came out of the mouth of the Antichrist. Religion, education. Yeah. We have a problem. So pray to Yahweh to reawaken America so that we will reclaim our heritage and we will seek him, worship Yahweh, become landed citizens once again of our individual several states, and throw off the yoke of the international bankers. Yes, we're living underneath the yoke of Esau, our brother, our older brother who was born first, the same time, same day we were born. Esau I hated, says Yahweh. Jacob I loved. So don't tell me that Jesus is going to go up on the hillside picking flowers and that's all he's ever going to do. Because there's about 6 different days of the Lord in the Bible. And in one of those, he comes back, Yahshua, the Messiah, with the host of heaven and administers justice on the earth. He wouldn't be who he is unless he administered justice based upon truth. So as the NIV Bible spoke to me, saying over and over again to you, I leave you with these words. And it, to me, is a command. Love truth and justice. May Yahweh bless.